All right. Hello, everybody who's being quarantined out there, like you should be doing, being responsible and all, looking out for the least among us. Anyway, I'm Dan Crosier with COFOH Live Undead, and I'm here with my friend Bryan Bonner, paranormal investigator and man of many talents, all in the realm of horror. So welcome. How are you doing?
Oh, stuck at home, uh, which we all are. Actually, I'm surprised at how many people are absolutely ignoring the quarantine.
Yeah, it's pretty troublesome. I've seen a lot of photos here in Denver being posted with groups of people having picnics. I mean, in large groups too, in
Well, and
public domains.
today being the holiday that it is, all of the churches seem to, well, not all of them, but a lot of the churches seem to be open. So I'm referring to today as National Reset the Clock Back to 2 weeks Stuck at Home Day.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Unfortunately, I looked at the COVID-19 website for Colorado that the state government updates, and we spiked again on Friday.
yeah,
Uh, so it doesn't look like it's going to be clearing up anytime soon.
no.
Yeah. Um,
But
but
it has, I was going to say, it has been advantageous because it's locked me into the house to where I have to watch horror movies all the time.
that's cool. What have you been able to consume?
Every horrible movie that was made from 1930 to 1960, I've pretty much worked my way through.
No kidding.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good resources online, YouTube especially, for just obscure, really bizarre horror movies. And I'm watching the classics too, but
Yeah.
I've already seen them, so I'm trying to find things that I haven't.
Yeah, find those little diamonds in the rough.
Exactly.
Is
And
there
okay,
any? Oh, I'm sorry.
go for it.
I'm sorry. I was going to see. Is there any that you can recommend that people can go and search?
Uh, I'm a sucker for the classics, so go look for some Vincent Price.
Yeah,
Go look for Boris Karloff, and not just his horror stuff. He did some amazing work.
he did some dramatic pieces too, right?
Oh, he's done a ton, and I'm finding all sorts of obscure things that it's like, well, I've heard about it, but I haven't actually seen it. So
Yeah.
we have the time now.
Wasn't he in a film with Jack Nicholson? It was a Roger Corman production, but I can't remember the name offhand.
Oh, the Jack Nicholson one was uh, right here, the original Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh, okay. I
That
thought.
was the Jack Nicholson Corman one, because that was Nicholson's first film.
Yeah, I thought they were in a period piece together with Boris Karloff towards the end of his career.
I think they were in and I'd have to look it up, Hammer film,
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. I think you're right. Yes. Yes.
which has been my other one of watching all the Hammer movies again.
Oh, that's cool. Um, yeah, man, that's pretty awesome. So, Bryan, take us back. Yeah, I mean, we're changing subjects and everything, but take us back. What makes Bryan Bryan? Why have you been so interested in like paranormal and horror? Was it something that emanated from childhood?
Bad choices, too much of this. Um,
Too much Guinness, huh?
there's never too much Guinness.
Okay.
Uh, I would say, long story, real short. I'll blame my mother.
Excellent.
Because she was really interested in the horror movies and
Nice.
really liked watching it, and I kind of got it from that.
Okay.
And the paranormal investigations came from that because there were things that they were claiming were real.
Mhm.
And growing up, I was always told that's not real. So it confused me and I had to look.
Yeah.
And back about, I'll say 22, 23 years ago now,
Mm-hmm.
I decided to see who was doing it, who's looking into these types of things. And there were a few,
Yeah.
but I talked to them and they were really sketchy in the way that they were doing things. They
Oh.
were more, and you run into this in the paranormal field a lot, where they're not actually doing research. They're going out and having a good time with a lot of confirmation bias. Don't get me, I always tell people there's two things. There's paranormal investigation,
Yeah.
which is generally dry, boring. You learn a lot of history, a lot of science. So I really dig it.
Yeah.
But it's not thrilling. And then there's ghost hunting, which I always classified as, me getting together with a bunch of my friends, grabbing some beers, going to the local cemetery, drinking ourselves silly, and scaring ourselves.
Yeah.
Much more fun.
Yeah.
You'll find ghosts that way. But, that's not real research. And there's such a weird blur between those two now that it's hard to say, who's doing what. But, the Rocky Mountain paranormal way has always been to try and apply as much of the scientific method as possible. I mean, you're in the field, you're in uncontrolled conditions. It's not very easy to do, but you do the best you can.
Yeah. When you're out there, doing these investigations, like, who's actually contacting you? Is it usually like a homeowner or something like that, or what kind of people are normally contacting you to look into this stuff?
Well, back when we first got into this, it wasn't the popular field that it is now. Nobody really knew it existed except for people who had been exposed to it, or people who truly thought something was going on in their home or their business.
Yeah.
So initially we were being contacted mostly by just average run-of-the-mill private citizens that were wanting us to try and figure out what was going on with them.
Yeah.
But back in the early 2000s, we had things like Ghost Hunters and all these TV shows and things really ramping up the interest in the field. And because of that, people really started misinterpreting things a lot more.
Okay.
So we started seeing a lot more people calling us because they thought what was happening to them was exactly what they'd just seen on the TV show.
Oh,
so therefore it must be a ghost.
Okay.
And businesses started to realize that, hey, if I have a haunted restaurant or a haunted bed and breakfast, I'll bring in a lot more money.
Ah.
So they would like to have somebody come in and tell them that they're haunted, which isn't always going to be the case when you call us in.
Yeah.
But at the same time, people started expecting us to bring in a TV crew.
Oh.
They'd call us and say, hey, we want you to show up and, look at what's going on in the house. We'd talk to them. We'd show up at the door and they'd be like, where's the production company?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it's like there's no production company. That's not what we're here for.
Yeah.
And as time's gone on, there's so much of that, and so much of and this is my really depressing part of it.
Okay.
Because people, I'll say, are accessible to the topic now, and it's being exposed a lot more as far as what's supposed to be happening if you have a ghost. There's a lot of people who are blaming like domestic abuse on ghosts.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of people who now, they'll have a psychological disorder, and rather than going to a doctor, for example, like they should,
Yeah.
Now they'll watch a TV show and go, oh, well, I'm hearing voices, they must be ghosts. So we're seeing this huge ramp up in people who need help. And I don't mean reassured there's nothing in their house or we don't know what it is, but these are people that are dangerous, either to themselves or others. And it's gotten so bad that it's kind of a twofold problem. We don't really want to go. Tell her I need a beer.
Hey, Elise, can you get Bryan a beer? Yeah, can you just digitally, just email it over?
Yeah. But basically, yeah, that was uncalled for. But we have the cases now that we don't want to go to them because we know that there's some sort of a issue like that going on. And it's pretty easy to tell after you first talk to somebody or just read their initial emails.
Right.
But at the same time, we don't really want somebody else going out to their house, because a lot of the paranormal groups out there will only confirm what they believe is happening and add into the problem that started the whole thing in the first place. You know, if you say the devil's making me beat up my wife every night because I'm possessed, and a paranormal group comes in and says, oh yeah, you've got demons.
Yeah.
Because that's what the paranormal group's looking for, so they've got their bias.
Yeah, it's just compounding that problem.
Exactly. It makes it much worse. And that's the not so fun portion of the paranormal research. And one of the things, you know, people ask me a lot of the time, they're like, you know, what do I need to do to get into the field? And the real answer is, you know, number 2, learn to use all of your equipment and things properly, do your research. But number 1, realize that if you're going on especially private investigations, you are impacting people's lives. This isn't a game when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And while it's fun and there's, you know, lots of interesting things to see and do, you have to realize when you tell somebody that they have a demon in their house, or when you tell somebody that, you know, well, we went to your house and you have 3 ghosts, but we were only able to take 2 of them home with us, you're stuck with the other one. The damage that you do to these poor people.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that we found out with people that have some sort of a psychological disorder that we really want to help, we've tried working with different types of first responders, mostly the police, and unfortunately their exposure to the paranormal world is the same as the people that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
So they really don't know what to do. So it's a really big gap. We say these people are saying this is happening, but we believe this is happening. Can you do a welfare check?
Yeah.
And if they do, they do it so wrong. You know, they'll show up. We had one, they showed up at the door and they said, yeah, some paranormal group said there's a bunch of crazy people living here. That's not the way to approach this.
No. Do you ever on these, have you ever brought in like somebody that is trained to work with these people in the sense of like a social worker or like a group psychologist or something? Somebody that can identify what you've identified, you know, as earmarks of, you know, these type of personalities and behaviors that indicate, you know, some type of abuse or, you know, maybe another mental condition with somebody in the household.
Well, the way that we have to approach this is we have a few people that we've worked with that can do that, but generally the first step is to find out if these people genuinely believe it, because if they don't, it's a battle lost. You need to get somebody else involved.
Yeah.
But if they genuinely believe that, you know, that something else is causing them to do this, you really have to learn to work with them at their belief.
Okay.
And, you know, do we have to bring in a member of clergy to act as a counselor? Maybe. Or can we talk to them and sensibly bring them down and say, okay, you're having problems right now. Maybe even approach it as there might be something going on, but you're having some psychological problems because of it. You need to seek help.
Yeah.
And that usually helps, but being able to get them to go to somebody that they can trust, talk to, and has that kind of training.
Yeah.
And that's something that's important that a lot of people in the field don't understand is we're not counselors.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, we're going to go in and we'll go ahead and talk to them and make sure that everything's, psychologically well for them. And we may be able to go in there and diagnose it a little bit so we can help somebody who's going to help them. Mm-hmm. But we're not counselors.
Right. Wow. That's something I really didn't, think about. Back in the 2000s, I would watch those shows, like Ghost Hunters, for example. And, first couple episodes, hey, this is great. And it's fun. And it kind of sensationalizes, that field. And I could totally get where people, they're calling you. It's like they're expecting a TV crew and to show up and kind of be able to exploit, the situation, whether, they think something's happening or they're creating it, out of the possibility of some kind of financial gain, I suppose.
Well, and that's something that I've found is, I'm not going to name any specific shows like Ghost Hunters, but, for the first couple of seasons, especially that show, they never really found anything. They were actually doing a pretty good job.
Okay.
But, ratings weren't that great. Mm. And then all of a sudden something happened. They found something and didn't explain it. And most all of the reality shows, and if you look at the disclaimers at the end of all these shows, they'll refer to them as usually as a docudrama, which means, kind of reality, but scripted.
Yeah.
And they have to, because if you have a show that consistently doesn't find anything, and if you've ever done paranormal investigations, that's generally the case, is you 99% of the time sit in a dark room, bored out of your mind, and don't find anything, even if it's something that's explainable.
Yeah.
That doesn't make for good advertising.
Right.
So when you find something, it's much better to say, it may have been a ghost, than it is to say, we don't think that was a ghost, here's what we thought it was.
Yeah.
So that's really important for advertisers.
Okay. With your experience, 99% of the time, and let me know if I'm overreaching, but you're not finding anything. You're, kind of deducing, could be X, could be Y. Why keep doing it if you're not, finding stuff? That's paranormally driven, maybe.
Well, it is that definition we all seek of repeating the same thing over and over again to expect different results.
I love infinity. Uh-oh, you froze. Uh-oh. Oh, shoot. Did we lose you, Bryan? Oh, no. Oh, there you go. You came back.
Ah, there I am.
Resurrected. And it's Easter Sunday.
It is Easter.
Best day for resurrecting the dead.
Back after 30 seconds.
Excellent.
So now what I was going to say is you have to approach each claim on its own.
Okay.
And by saying I've solved all the cases because this one thing that was similar we explained doesn't mean that you've explained the other ones.
Okay.
And it's kind of, multi-headed. We like to be able to help people understand if they think their house is haunted and we can tell them that, this is what's causing it. Mm-hmm. It's nice to be able to give them that power back in their lives so they can move on. Or, and for us, it's interesting because we can explain something which nobody else seems to have been able to go in and look at. Mm. But at the same time, it's interesting to find these cases where it's like, I don't know. And that's kind of where we leave it, is I don't know. It's
Okay.
either we've explained it or we're working on it.
Okay.
I don't immediately say, we know that it wasn't a squeaky pipe. We know that it wasn't trees rustling outside. Therefore, it must be a ghost. You have to say, therefore, I don't know because I don't have enough data.
Mm.
So it's our goal to keep collecting that data up until we come up with an answer, or just keep looking at it. And up until then, it's I don't know what it is.
Okay.
And that drives people on both sides crazy, because you have I'll say cynics on both sides that say, well, if you don't know what it was a ghost. Or there's no such thing as ghosts, therefore, why are you doing this? And it's like, well, because we want to know what the reality is behind every one of these claims.
Right. It's kind of like Scooby in the game, unveiling the curtain and revealing that it's Old Man Witherspoon. Yeah,
Right.
he was running the amusement park.
It always was, but they still had fun doing it.
Yeah, true.
Not once did they say, oh, and this is the first time we've ever found a ghost.
Right.
But we tuned in every week to watch him unmask the same groundskeeper.
Yeah, unless it was one of those crossover episodes where you had Batman and the Globetrotters, then it was the Joker and the Penguin.
Yeah, or the movies, because they had real ghosts in those. So.
Yeah. So kind of changing the course a little bit. Bryan, you've done a couple of different events where you'll take groups of people out on ghost tours and bus tours and stuff. What are some of your more favorite stories that you toured people around with?
Well, let's see, a couple of locations. One of my favorites, and it definitely falls into the I don't know what it was category, downtown on Market Street, there's a place called Maddie's House of Mirrors.
Oh, okay.
Not too terribly far from Coors Field.
Yeah.
And let's see if I can give you the short version of it here. Back at the time that Denver was kind of first ramping up, there was a reason that was called Market Street.
Okay.
It wasn't originally. It was first called Holiday Street.
Oh,
but because all of the working girls were there, it became Market Street.
Oh, wow.
And Maddie's was one of the, I won't say first, but was kind of like the premier brothel. Was built by a woman named Jenny Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
And there's even a story that if you look at the building, there's these like terracotta faces around the outside of the building. And they say that that's the men that she kind of squeezed the money out of to get the building put up. So that was some sort of dedication to them. If that's true, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But she had a competitor in town. Her name was Martha Reedy. She went by the name Maddie Silks.
Mm.
And they were kind of competitors, I guess. And Maddie really wanted that building. So the urban legend goes that they had a sword fight over the property. It's absolutely not true. The property was sold.
Okay.
But the thing is, Maddie eventually got it, and this was an amazing building. When you went in there, she converted the lower floor, the main floor of the building, to a restaurant.
Okay.
And they called it Maddie's House of Mirrors because every surface in that building that she could put a mirror on, there was a mirror on. Wow. And it was a really respectable restaurant. You could have a business meeting there. You could take your family there and have dinner. You couldn't take them upstairs.
Mm.
That was where the brothel was. So when you went up there, it was kind of interesting because it's a really thin building. So it was set up like a hotel. There were rooms on two sides and one central hallway that ran down the middle.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to quote you the prices because I don't remember anymore. But there were two options. You could get a girl in a room or a girl in a room with a potbelly stove in it for heat. And heat was expensive because it almost doubled the price of the room. But it was kind of an interesting setup because when you went into the rooms, you step to the side, close the door, and the Murphy bed fell out and blocked the door.
Oh, geez.
So it was a way to lock the door.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
You were safe that way.
Yeah.
Well, there was one woman, her name was Ella Wellington, and she was the one confirmed death in the building. There's rumors of a lot, but she seems to be the only confirmed one. However, the stories are mixed. Some say that she killed herself. Some say that her boyfriend killed her. And a politician at the time claimed that he was there when she killed herself. He was a politician, so take that for what you will.
Yeah.
But one way or the other, she ended up dead.
Okay.
And skip forward decades later, there's all sorts of stories of ghosts in the building. Really interesting ones, too. Stories of the elevator in the building randomly going between floors in the middle of the night when nobody calls it.
Oh, interesting.
Hearing people around the building, seeing people walking around when there's nobody else left. There was a piano on the second floor that was rumored to play by itself. So we got called in and went up there, and as usual, and I don't know why, it was an absolute blizzard outside, which is always good for us because it kind of limits how many people are around.
Okay.
And we were kind of just sitting on the second floor at our little, base station that we had, watching monitors and listening to the building. And all of a sudden, from the area that the murder, suicide, whatever it was, had happened, there was a voice. And it turns out it's actually two voices. It was recorded on a camcorder that was in the area. We haven't even been able to identify the language. We've sent this thing off to a couple of linguists, and they say we have no idea. It's two people talking.
Wow.
There was nobody in the building with us. And, obviously nobody outside. We've checked for footprints in the snow, which is a nice way to be able to check.
Yeah.
So there's this really bizarre recording of two people talking to each other. If you go to the website, it's on the investigations page. You can listen to it.
Nice.
But yeah, it's really bizarre. Does that prove that there's a ghost there? No. I'd like to say yes, but it proves that we heard something and were able to record it.
Okay.
Are there possible other explanations? Probably.
Sure.
I haven't come up with them yet. It's been a long time. We've gone through a lot of explanations, but so far, I don't know what it is. And it kind of coincides with the story, too, because that's where all of the ghost sightings are supposed to be.
Yeah. Wow.
And when we went there, there's a lot of ghost stories there, but most of the employees refused to go upstairs alone after they'd closed. They'd always go up in teams. So it's fun. That's another reason I really like doing this. You get to learn the history of places that otherwise you probably wouldn't have.
Right.
And I am a history freak. And how often is it people will willingly come up and just tell you all of their personal ghost stories?
True.
I'm a horror movie fan. I'm a ghost story fan. Just coming, from the first party, even, real or not, is just fun.
That's pretty cool. When it comes to ghost stories, it's always interesting to hear that stuff, and then you hear more of what really happened, some of the more macabre things, like the stuff with Cheeseman Park in Denver, the supposed moving of some of the bodies poorly.
I guarantee you that the bodies are still there because I've held them in my hands.
Oh dear. Okay, I need to hear that story.
Back in 2010, they were doing some construction at the park. They were redoing the sprinkler system and putting in new gardens. And one day, one of the construction workers found a body.
Oh, jeez.
So one of the things that he did was he took the bones and he put them into this bag that the sprinkler parts were coming in and went back to work.
Huh.
Didn't tell anybody. So the next morning, there's this guy on his bicycle cruising through the park, like you do.
Mm-hmm.
And he sees this, kind of unmarked bag sitting at the side of the road, doesn't know what it is, so he decides he'll check.
Yeah.
So he finds what the guy had left there, and he did exactly what probably you would do or I would do when he found something like that. He picked up the phone and he called the KBPI morning show.
Oh, God.
Because normally, due to its past and things like that, they really don't talk about when they find body parts out there. They pop up all the time.
Yeah.
You just don't hear about it. This time we heard about it.
Yeah.
So it made the news. And at that point, we thought, well, they found a few bodies out there. We know that they're there. Let's call up the medical examiner's office and see what we can find out. So we called them up and said, hey, Rocky Mountain Paranormal, we hear you found some bodies out there. Click. Called them back again and said, don't hang up. This is legitimate. Rocky Mountain Paranormal, we want to do some investigation into this. We've looked into history and would really like to bring in a team of forensic anthropologists.
Nice.
So we worked with the Metro State Human Body Identification Labs, which is part of the university, and brought in the teachers and the students to work on the bodies. So we got to spend the day with these people. All that was really left was skeletons. Everything else was completely gone, which honestly wasn't that big of a surprise because of the way that they were buried. Most of the bodies there were buried very shallow, usually around 3 feet deep, because part of another debacle that was going on there. And when bodies are buried that shallow, they decompose really quick. The wood even goes away. So all that was left was the skeletons. And it was really cool because, I've said it 1,000 times and it still gives me the chills. People ask me, have you ever talked to the dead? We did that day, and they answered. They gave us information about who they were, how they died, how they lived, through, real science. But it all started with paranormal investigation. And I should reach up here and grab something. The medical examiner's office, after all of this went down, called us and said that they'd contacted the local museums and historic societies and all that sort of stuff, and nobody seemed to want this stuff, and offered us the casket hardware that they pulled up over the years.
Oh, wow. No kidding.
And how could you say no? We do a lot of talks about this, so when we go do these things, we can take them with us and say, look, here's a real piece of proof. Not only do I have pictures of us, holding the skeletons, but here's a real piece. And that park has so many bizarre connections. The movie The Changeling, based on a house that backed up to the edge of the park. Poltergeist. It's one of 2 cemeteries that the movie was based on. One thing I can do, because it's easily to get. Did you see the remake of Poltergeist?
I did, the one with Sam Rockwell. I don't remember much about it.
It's not a good movie, but it's Poltergeist, so you've got to. Now, if you remember in the movie, the little girl who I like to refer to as not Carol Ann.
The teenager?
The way that she got coerced to the other side was her favorite toy, all on its own, sat up and went across and got pulled into the closet. And, she carried that thing around with her through the whole movie. And you know, through that whole movie, I was like, that is just the one iconic piece of something from this film. So with a little work, and I'm standing up,
Yep.
proving I have pants on too.
You actually got dressed today. What's going on?
So, that being said, I give you the pig.
Oh, yep. I remember that.
Yep.
Oh,
and this is the stunt pig that was used to drag it into the closet. So,
oh, wow.
So, yeah, we have the pigicorn.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah, you do have quite the collection. You've been how long have you been accumulating this collection that I see in the background and stuff?
Probably 20 years.
Oh, okay. Wow. I would have thought, you know, that went back a little bit further.
Not really. I've just been obsessive about it for 20 years.
Okay.
And more coming in, and I can't stop myself. I was talking to you earlier. Did you see the remake of Rabid? The Soska sisters did?
No, I haven't. I've seen the original.
I would recommend it. It's actually, my review was, this is a much better film than it really should have been.
Oh, interesting.
It is a very, very pretty film.
Yeah.
I expected nothing, and I got a good movie, and it confused me. So I ended up getting from the Soska sisters something that confuses me, because I don't know what to do with it. I have this wonderful surgical mask signed by them that's a promo for the movie, and this is the one surgical mask I have.
Yeah.
So the question is, when do you break down and use your movie prop?
Right. Especially, you know, during these times. Well, and you've got the other, you know, like
I got
masks.
got these, but you know, this isn't nearly as cool. So
yeah, maybe for those of you, you know, when we post this video, if people have suggestions for Bryan, they can post them. I would say for the time being, since you've got those construction masks, definitely just use this as a prop. Just
an emergency backup. Yeah.
Oh, have it in a place where you have to break the glass to get it. I
like that. Actually, right now it's on my display because I have all of the original lobby cards from the first movie.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, I think you and I talked some time ago about, like, you know, when, you know, they're making remakes, and, you know, most of them don't come out very good. You know, they produce the remake because, you know, there's the audience, it's already built in, all the marketing's pretty much done for you. But every now and then you've got that nugget that's pretty good, and very, even more rarely, but occasionally it happens. You get that remake that surpasses the original, like John Carpenter's The Thing, Cronenberg's The Fly. The originals of those, you know, are also, you know, classic.
I was going to say, you know, I won't say they surpassed.
Okay.
Because, I mean, honestly, The Thing, the original one,
yeah,
one of my favorite films.
Okay.
And I kind of look at it and Cronenberg's as two completely different movies.
Okay.
Same plot, but, you know, obviously in the 80s, it was much easier to do lots of, well, Cronenberg body horror.
Yeah.
So it worked. But that original film is just so amazing.
Yeah.
And The Fly, I mean, Vincent Price, how can you beat that?
Right.
Jeff Goldblum did amazing.
Yeah.
But that's the problem I have, is sometimes the remakes, they're as good as the originals. Mm-hmm. So it's a really rough call. But like you were saying, most of them are just tragically bad.
Right. Well, you know, I keep equating, you know, remakes to the, you know, they're going to remake it obviously because of the business end and the marketing. But at the same time, how many different versions of Hamlet have been produced for the stage as well as film?
Right.
There's always going to be that different version. I was watching something, I think it was on Wisecrack. It's a YouTube channel that marries, well, it applies philosophy to pop culture, and they're able to, you know, dissect things, you know, in that way. And I think like one of the things that they were talking about is, you know, how you take a story and then reinterpret it for a generation. like, and for me, my personal view is, unfortunately, like what Disney does with a lot of their animated, features now. So recently you had the photorealistic CG animated Lion King, which was supposed to be, live action, and it's not. But you've I can go back and watch the original Lion King and love that, and I was bored to tears with this new iteration. But apparently, there's an audience out there that hasn't watched the original, and this is how they interface with that, and
Well,
hopefully,
I'm watching that happen right now.
yeah,
That the new generations are accepting the current version because it's the first one they saw.
right,
And it's like my usual analogy. If you've ever watched James Bond or Doctor Who, the
mm-hmm.
first one you encountered is always your favorite.
Right.
And it's the same thing. If the first thing you saw was that remake and it was kind of made for your generation, generally that's the one you're going to make. But what I picture, some of the reality is the pitch meeting where they're at the studio going, so what do we have the rights to?
Right.
I think that's really important, is what don't we have to put out any money for to make a movie?
Yep.
We have this whole catalog, let's remake it.
Yep. The script's already there. We might just have to dust it off a little bit, polish it up, and, put in some jokes that would, refer to this generation.
Yep. Update the technology and you're good.
Yeah, pretty much. I've had this conversation too with my cousin. She is 20 years younger than me, so she grew up on Phantom Menace and episode 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, and they love it.
Yeah. She seems to enjoy it. But the way I look at it, it's like, well, if that's your integrations to, or your initiation in order to, watch the ones that I grew up with, then great, But yeah, it's interesting to see and hear like those perspectives, from a different generation. Earlier you were talking about how you're kind of consuming all these different horror films on YouTube and stuff, which is such a great resource for finding obscure things. Are you able to constantly surprise yourself with all these hidden nuggets that you haven't seen?
I try to.
Mm-hmm.
My main problem, if you can't tell from this, I'm kind of a collector of physical media.
Yeah.
And it's the same problem that I have with books. Once I've read something, I have to have the book.
Okay.
I'll probably never read it again. It's going onto my bookshelf. But It's the same with a lot of movies. It's like, that was really cool. Now I have to go buy a copy of it.
Yeah.
I may never watch it again. But because of that, I have this ever-growing collection of DVDs. And, one of the arguments I just got into with a producer not long ago,
mm-hmm.
They were all excited because they were finally being able to go to streaming. He's like, my movie, he says, somebody bought it and we're going straight to streaming. And he was so excited. And I said, that's horrible. And he says, what do you mean that's horrible? I said, how do I buy a signed copy of the stream?
Yeah.
In 5 years from now, if I want to watch that, where do I get it? It's not streaming anymore.
Right.
But if I have some type of physical media, even if I have a beta tape of something, I can still find a player for it.
Yeah.
So, that's the thing is, kind of being able to preserve what's out there, I think is really important. And I think YouTube's really important for that because they're a lot less lenient on older movies
mm-hmm.
unless the studios really go after them. So there's a lot of content out there that is the only place you can find it.
Yeah, it's also, stuff like that is a really good platform for not only obscure titles, but like filmmakers just starting out, just presenting their content. Platform like that, and like Vimeo too. You know, you can throw it out there. You can try and find your audience.
Right. And I mean, there's all sorts of cool horror streaming now. You've got Shudder and Screambox and Binge Horror and all of these things that, I mean, they have a lot of the new releases and top end stuff, but they have things that are so tragically bad I have a hard time watching them. But it's giving everybody a platform to go out and show their movies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been difficult in the past. You could make a movie and rent a theater or try and sell it, but now you get a hold of even Amazon and say, I got a movie, you can show it for free. Odds are they're probably going to show it. Just as an example of how hard it is to get movies purchased, and this obviously goes back a ways. Years ago, I got an email that said there was going to be a screening of a new zombie movie in Denver.
Okay.
And they were trying to get people to fill the theater. There wasn't anybody really replying. And I'm like, I'm there. It's a zombie film.
Yeah.
So we showed up, and there wasn't a really large group of people there. But out walks the people behind the movie that are literally walking the reels across the country trying to expose their film because they need somebody to buy it.
Right. Wow.
It was Simon Pegg and Nick Frost and all the cast. Yeah. They
Awesome.
were trying to get somebody to buy Shaun of the Dead. Nobody wanted it.
Oh my God. Oh.
And, you know, they did a little Q&A afterwards. And I was so awestruck. I'm like, why isn't anybody... that somebody has to buy this.
Yeah.
But I mean, that shows how hard it is because, I mean, that's a classic now.
Yep. Very much so.
You can talk to anybody that knows anything about movies, not even horror, say Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
They know what you're talking about. But it really shows you how, you know, that was, what, 15 years ago?
During something like that, and I don't know if you recall this. Yeah, that was a long time ago. During like the Q&A, did they talk about, you know, why it was so difficult? Did they get that kind of feedback, or was it just like, we're not interested?
There was no real interest in zombies.
Okay.
It hadn't really hit yet. Zombies weren't the thing.
Yeah.
You know, they were one of the things that really brought it to the forefront. And it was such an insider film. I mean, listening to the people that were doing the questions at the Q&A, they knew their zombie movies.
Yeah.
They were asking questions like, how did you get approval for the music from this movie? It's like, nobody else but this group of people would have even noticed that that's what it was. And there were so many little dedications to the rest of the zombie genre that nobody would get. So it was kind of a niche film.
Yeah. Man, yeah. Nowadays, and now it's a classic. It's the standard.
Yeah. And right, let's see, where am I? There is the cricket bat signed by Simon Pegg.
Oh, yep, I see it. Yep, it's right there. Okay.
Exactly.
Nice. Right underneath that, what is that Living Dead poster? It's kind of whited out.
That is The Birth of the Living Dead, the documentary.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I've seen that one.
I would recommend it.
Okay.
I just liked it because it is like the most pop art poster I've ever seen for a horror movie. And
nice.
I kind of coaxed the theater owner into giving it to me.
Oh, that's cool.
I was like, I've got to have that. He's like, come back in a week. You can have it. So
that's pretty cool. The I think the last zombie documentary that I saw was Dock of the Dead.
Which a lot of it was shot here.
Yeah. It's Robert Moratori is the DP, and Alexander O. Felipe. They're both local actors, local filmmakers. But they've done a lot of like pop culture stuff. I don't know if you know them personally, because I know you work with a lot of filmmakers in general.
I think I've crossed paths with them. I'm not sure. Yeah, when I was watching that, I was actually taking my camera out and taking pictures of the screen, going, texting people, going, "You're in this movie." They had
Nice.
no idea because
Nice.
they were like the zombie crawl and things like that.
Yep.
And it's a documentary. There's not a lot of releases being signed. And it was
Yeah.
so much fun seeing people that I knew and places that I knew, and it was just a lot of fun.
That's pretty cool. And you yourself, if correct me if I'm wrong, you have a pretty extensive IMDb page, right, with a lot of credits.
For anybody that can add me, I need one more to get to 20. So.
Oh, okay. I thought you had more than that because
no.
Okay.
But ever growing, and I volunteer to be killed in anything. I like that. That's my goal, is to be killed in as many movies as possible. So anybody who needs me to die, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You've been helping us out with Colorado Festival of Horror, helping us procure guests and organize some of the extracurricular activities and what have you. Is there something that you personally really want to see happen with the horror and even the paranormal community here in Denver that you just haven't seen before?
First, I'd like them to get out of quarantine.
Yep. Agreed.
Secondly, there needs to be more horror things happening in Colorado. We've got a lot of comic things. We've got a lot of sci-fi conventions, and I love those. Don't get me wrong, and I speak at most of them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, very horror-specific things and very paranormal-specific things are very, very light in this area. Okay. For a while, we had some, and we've got some coming back. We've got the Colorado Festival of Horror, Mile High Horror Film Fest is coming back.
Yep.
So it's happening, but if you look across the country, every weekend, barring right now, there is a horror convention going on. There's some sort of a screening going on of a major horror movie that's coming out, and it's not here.
Yeah.
We're kind of in a very quiet little area that needs to have more.
Yeah.
And how we do that, I don't know. But as you've learned, I'll volunteer for anything to get that to happen.
Yes, indeed. Well, we're going to have to kill you a couple times on Scream, at least in promos.
All right.
Yeah. I think years ago, we've kind of met up when we were working with, Ryan Poliski, doing like some little spots and bumpers for Horror House Fest.
Horror House Fest.
Yeah.
Right there.
And didn't you have a partner at the time doing the paranormal investigations, or you're doing that solo now these days, right?
Well, I've got a group of people that I kind of bounce things off of, but there's just a couple of us now. Yeah, he's gone his way doing other things, and I've been doing this way too long. Prior to him even coming in. Okay. So, the only way this thing's going to die is if somebody kills me. It's way too much fun, and not just that. I mean, there's the horror aspect, the movies, the getting to know all of the stars and people like that, the paranormal investigations. The thing I really enjoy about the paranormal investigations is the fact that I get to learn all sorts of new things involving science, all weird aspects of it. We get, drug into, we've had lots of psychology. We've had lots of medical doctors come in. We've had, strange as it sounds, anthropologists. We've had to deal with a lot of geology. And every time we have to call somebody in, I'm forced to work with them and learn, and I just love it. I've become a huge history buff because of it. Yeah. And not only that, but going out and doing the public outreach, going out and being able to, especially kids.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Going out and being able to say, we're going to talk about ghosts.
Okay.
And while we are talking about ghosts, we're also talking about scientific method, critical thinking. And in doing that, the kids get to learn something that unfortunately they generally don't seem to be learning in school,
Mm-hmm.
but they're learning it in a way that is exciting, so they really are interested in it. So I'm always at a library or a school or something like that talking to groups of people,
Nice.
just trying to educate them in everything. And I mean, I have talks ranging from paranormal ghost hunting 101 to ghost stories to history to critical thinking. And depending on what people want, it's just a lot of fun being able to go out and inform people.
I would love to see you sometime, and maybe right now during the quarantine sessions, just go on like Facebook Live or something, and just start reading children's spooky stories or ghost stories or something like that. I think that would be hilarious. Get dressed up in your
suit.
Yeah, and then just like, hey kids, it's story time with Bryan Bonner.
Kill the lights, break in the fog machine. Okay, today I'm not wearing my suit. I'm wearing my seance shirt. But
yeah. Well, it's
casual Sunday.
It's casual Sunday, and seancing is it ties into Easter, doesn't it? You got to talk to the dead sometime.
That's true. Well, that's something else that I did. We did several years of theatrical seances.
No kidding.
And yeah, that is a lot of fun. It's also very difficult to convince people that they're not real, but being able to, it's kind of like doing a theater production or, producing a movie, but you're having to do it every night.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of fun and absolutely exhausting.
Is it exhausting just because of, all the effort that goes into it, or is it exhausting in just the conversation of trying to convince people one way or the other, or just leave it as kind of an ongoing conversation?
Oh, doing something theatrical, you don't have to convince them. At the beginning, we'll say everything we're about to do is fake.
Okay.
They forget. Okay. 10 seconds into it, they're talking to their dead grandparents. But it's exhausting, and I found this out. Any type of public speaking or presenting something like that, I love doing it. I don't know why. I used to have terrible stage fright. Now throw me in front of a crowd, I don't care. But you've done some public speaking.
Yeah, I have.
That,
if you call it that.
Yeah, you kind of get a rush off of it. It's like, I need to go do that again. And it's fun because I love telling stories. I love helping people learn things, and it's a really bizarre way to be able to do it.
Yeah, it's I really do find the engagement is rewarding to itself, and yeah, the rush, the adrenaline, doing that, like today I had a really bad allergic reaction before I came on. I downed like 2 Benadryl, and so my energy is like really low. But as we get going, I start feeling that ramp up more now than probably in previous interviews that I've done. So that's always interesting to see how you can pace yourself and really engage.
Well, and being able to. I understand theater performers now because especially doing like haunted tours.
Yeah.
I always made sure don't script anything. Tell the same story, but that way if people show up 2 nights in a row, it's a little bit different and I don't get tired of it. Yeah. But it got to the point where we're driving to a site. I'm like, what site are we going to? Or I'm talking, the stories are coming out, but somewhere in my head, I'm like, did I already say that? What am I talking about right now? Because it's just the same thing over and over. So being able to cope with that too.
Kind of that weird sense of deja vu, maybe.
Exactly. It's like, okay, I hear myself talking. I'm at this point, so I'll continue.
Kind of gets that echo chamber going on in your head. It's like, wait a minute, this sounds weird.
Exactly. I'm telling ghost stories. Meanwhile, in my head, I'm, preparing dinner tomorrow.
Yeah. Hey, so with the quarantine, you notice that a lot of films, horror movies, also are being pushed back. Is there anything that was, on the cusp of, being released that is now pushed back past the horizon that you're kind of looking forward to?
Ghostbusters.
Oh, true. Well, that's next summer.
They're saying they may push it.
Oh, that's right. Next summer is coming up really quick.
Yes. And Terrifier 2.
Yeah.
Production isn't quite done on it, and I don't know how fast that's going to happen.
Right. Because that was supposed to come out in October, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, I mean, just all the movies in general. And to make matters worse, I don't know if you saw, they're saying AMC theaters may not recover from this.
Right. I have seen that, which is really unfortunate. We've got our local AMC at Southlands Mall just down the street from us. Which
I guess they've been having a lot of problems before. Okay. This is just kind of like the final nail that's going to take it.
That's too bad. I think right now just businesses in general too. It's try and support what you can. Those mom and pop shops that are able to do curbside delivery and stuff.
That's what I've been doing. I keep telling people, as long as I can afford it, I will keep ordering stuff in because I want to support the community. I want to make sure that the local restaurant stays open, the local brew pub stays open, and the only way that they're going to make it is if people go out and help them.
Right.
And if you can afford a couple of bucks to throw at them, even artists, filmmakers, there's a lot of people out there that are starting some, crowdfunding that are, they're desperate. They make their living on doing things that they can't do anymore.
Right. I've been noticing that, especially with the comic book community. Tons of artists, creators, publishers, distributors that are just completely on hiatus, whether for a limited time or almost indefinitely.
Well, and that's the thing. It looks like the major comic book distributor,
Diamond,
may be gone. Yeah, and that is a disaster. Right.
Yeah, it's going to be excruciing. So hopefully we bounce back pretty soon. Hey, Bryan, we're going to have to wind down a little bit, and but where can people go to find what you do and the things that you're interested in?
I'll make it easy. If you go to RockyMountainParanormal.com, everything is there or linked off in there. Colorado Festival of Horror, my ever limping along podcast that someday I'll revive once this whole mess is over. Just everything is right there.
Okay. Cool. Well, Bryan, thanks so much for coming on and chatting with us about horror and paranormal investigations and some of these haunted ghost stories of Denver. So we greatly appreciate it. And I can't wait to see you in person in the real world, not just the digital one.
Yeah, I haven't seen anybody but the family here for 6 weeks now. So.
Okay. Wow. I hope you stay healthy, and I hope you guys are doing well.
Back at you.
All right. Thanks. I'm going to hit the stop record button.